This is Marimbalogy, my name is Charlie, and today we have an analysis video of Sammut's rotation number 4. For those of you who follow me on Instagram or Facebook, I did post a picture of this super sweet blue barred Malletech Omega Vibe, and I am working on a review video of that. I would love to get it out soon. I've had some issues with it, and I've reached out to Malletech, and I've been talking with them, and I've been talking with Lee Stevens to try to alleviate some of those issues. So I feel like I need to wait to finish the review and to see if some of those things get resolved. But I'm really looking forward to it. It's a cool instrument, and I think you guys will really, really enjoy it. Today's submission comes from Nick. I don't know where Nick is from. Okay, we're going to make up a location for Nick. What city is in like every state? Springfield. We're gonna say Nick is from Springfield, and I'll leave the state blank. Thank you so much, Nick, for submitting a video. If you would like to have your video featured on the show, send me a YouTube link, Dropbox link, or Google Drive link to marimbalogy@gmail.com. Let's get started. All right, Nick, so overall, I'd say your technique looks really relaxed and really, really solid. You have good control of your mallets and your interval changing. The mallet height looks good, like the instrument height looks good. You have a really huge dynamic range, which is good, but we'll talk about that in just a second. So this piece follows basic ABA form, also known as sonata form. We have our exposition, which is the main theme of the piece. We have the development, where he takes those ideas and plays around with them a little bit. And then we have our recapitulation, where he quotes back to the exposition and then ends the piece. So I think you have a really good solid understanding of the overall form of the piece. Each section clearly had an end and a beginning to the next section. One thing that you could work on a little bit is it sounded like you used the metronome a lot, which usually is good, but when you had like rallentandos and ritardandos between sections, it often felt very rushed. And I think that's just a symptom of using the metronome so much that you don't feel free to express a transition as well as you would if you didn't use the metronome so much. So I would say just experiment a little bit with taking your time on those rallentandos and ritardandos and just letting them breathe a little bit before a new section comes in. Okay, let's talk about your phrasing. You definitely had a lot of phrasing. Okay, the anatomy of a phrase here, we have our buildup of tension and release. And as percussionists, we don't have as many tools as other instruments to do this, so we generally have dynamics and speed. In rotation number 4, the first phrase is the first 4 bars. We have a gradual build and then a release. And you can see this dynamically. He has a mezzo piano in the beginning, a crescendo to mezzo forte, and he doesn't write a decrescendo, but it's kind of implied. So here's what I want you to think about. Your piece should tell some kind of story. And usually in a musical piece, there will be many phrases, but these phrases aren't all the same. These phrases are a smaller part of a bigger picture. So I like to call these micro phrases. There's a ton of phrases in a piece. They're the micro phrases, but they combine together to make the macro phrase. The macro phrase is the big picture of where the piece is headed. Now, a great example of this is Adagio for Strings by Samuel Barber. There are many phrases in the piece, but each one builds up in dynamic and builds up in range until this huge epic climax, and then everything just kind of like eases down and the tension releases, and then the piece comes to a close. It's really beautiful. If you haven't heard that piece, you need to stop this video right now and go listen to it. Now, as a disclaimer, not all music follows this exact form. Some music, particularly minimalist music, doesn't have these big sweeping build up, tension, and release. It's a little bit more static. Okay, so in that scenario, if you're playing some Steve Reich, this may not apply. But for most Western music, it does follow this phrasing and this form. So let's take a look at rotation 4, just the exposition. Okay, we have the main theme of the song. Then we have the main theme in octaves. Now this should sound more intense than the previous section. For one, you're playing with more mallets at the same time, so the volume is going to be louder, but it should have a little bit more intensity as well than the previous section. Then we have a release of tension and a transition into the development. Okay, so that is the macro phrase. Each one of these smaller phrases should fit into that bigger picture. And that is what helps us tell a story. Now, if we listen to your rendition, this is what it looks like. Every phrase is huge. Like every phrase goes from piano to like fortissimo back to piano. And it's an impressive display of control for sure. And it's great to see that you are trying to do the phrasing. But what it ends up doing is it makes the ear a bit tired because there's too much contrast. And you're not like pushing the audience towards like a destination. It just feels like you're on a ride that's going fast and then slow and then fast and then slow, and it's just a little bit too much. So I think what would really help you out in this piece is to figure out what you want the most intense climax of each section of the music to be, and then build up each phrase to lead to that climax. And I think that will help take your audience on a journey and will really help take this piece to the next level for you. Thank you so much, Nick, for sending this in. You're a great player and you're headed in the right direction. If you're still working on this piece, I would love to get an updated video at some point if you want to try out some of these ideas. That'd be pretty cool. If you would like to watch Nick's performance in its entirety, I'll put a link in the description below and you can go follow him on YouTube. All right, guys, thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it, and bells if you want some more of it. I'll see you next time.